Good morning. Today we're talking about women and men, the two sexes among human beings. Why is there such a thing as male and female? One could say that male and female exist in all of creation. But why? Why are we women? That is the question for today. But in fact, it goes beyond the idea of male and female everywhere in creation. Because scientists will tell you, if you study chemistry, there are what's called ions, positively charged ions and negatively charged ions. And in physics, we've come to realize that all life is really an energy. Okay, so there's something that emanates from us as spirits, an energy, if you want to call it that. But all energy is really a vibration. So when we talk about rays of light, or even sound, or an electric current, it's a vibration that goes like this, up and down, and side to side, and side to side. It's a vibration. The up and down, it's what's called the amplitude of the vibration. The side to side is what we call the frequency of the vibration. And that up and down motion is the positive charge. The side to side motion is what we call the negative charge. Now, it's very important, especially for those of us who live in America. We think of positive and negative in terms of, oh, you have positive thoughts, you're happy. You have negative thoughts, you're sad. But here we're talking about a movement of energy. The positive up and down movement is a movement that directs downwards, straight downwards, or straight upwards. It doesn't look to either side. And this is important for you to know. The negative movements or the side to side movements is an oscillation. I hope you understand what the meaning of the word oscillation is. What oscillates? A grandfather clock oscillates back and forth, back and forth. And it can oscillate very wide, or it can oscillate only very narrowly. But this oscillation, going back and forth, allows it to impact everything all around it, side to side. See how my arm is moving side to side. Now, that is the negative vibration. Because of that, the negative vibration affects the surroundings, the side to side vibration. The up and down vibration is driving. It drives directly forward, or directly downwards, or directly upwards, directly forwards, or directly backwards. Now, all that is spirit is an energy. So if you translate that, it means that all that is spirit vibrates either positively or negatively. And we are spiritual beings. Our beingness is spiritual. And for that reason, we either vibrate in a positive or in a negative, up and down or side to side. The negative vibration is gentler. It just oscillates. And not only does it just oscillate, but it becomes more able to sense the surroundings. And because it is able to sense the surroundings, it is also able to affect the surroundings. Try to take that into your mind and let it percolate inside you. Now, as spiritual beings, that means that we only truly vibrate in one or the other mode. If you take the up and down vibration and you superimpose it on the side to side vibration, what you will get is an equal armed cross. Not a crucifix like in religion, but an equal armed cross. If you take a photograph of anything, doesn't matter what it is, a snowflake, a grain of sand, anything, and you enlarge it and enlarge it and enlarge it, you will find that the smallest manifestation of that thing is going to be little crosses. Everything in life spiritually comes down to this up and down and side to side vibration. Because of that, we could say that even we as spirits vibrate either positively or negatively. The positive is what I will describe as the masculine, because it is direct, forward driving, downward driving, or upward driving. And the side to side or negative is the feminine. That means that as spirits, we are spiritual beings inside a physical body. So as spirits, we actually are male or masculine spirits or female or feminine spirits. Why do we have to be male and female? Is it just so we can have progeny, so we can have babies and children? There's got to be more to it than that, because there are lots of men and women walking the face of the earth who don't have children. So they're giving more to the earth than just children. When you think about it, if you take a man and sort of compare a man to a woman, men are more solidly built. They're physically stronger. They're physically bigger. And because they're physically denser and more solid, they're less sensitive to the environment. Women, on the other hand, are more porous. And because they're more porous, they are more permeable to external influences affecting them. But the upside to that is, because they're more porous and they're more sensitive, they can feel what's coming in, and what passes through them also goes out and affects everything around them. For that reason, women are a very, very strong determining factor of everything that's going to go on or happen around each individual woman. And if you take each individual woman and put all these individual women all over the world together, then you can understand that how the women vibrate will determine the state and the condition and what will happen in the world. This is so important. If we look back at the history of humankind, in the past, women were cloistered. Today, women are no longer cloistered. But think, even though the women were cloistered, they still had a very powerful effect on the men and on the society in which they lived. Today, women are not cloistered. We have freedom. We still have the same effect, whether we're veiled or unveiled. We still have a very powerful effect. And the reason we have that effect is because as spiritual beings, because we are more porous, light energy that comes from the spiritual can penetrate through us much more easily. And we can, in turn, send it out to the surroundings. But what happens when, because we are feeling like, oh, we're no longer cloistered, we're out there, we need to be able to compete with men, we need to be able to have the same jobs, we need to be able to make the same amount of money because we're putting in the same amount of hard work. And that's true. But in the process, if we forget that there's another aspect to our being as women, which is the spiritual one, if we're unable to maintain both the spiritual activity as well as the physical activity, and if the physical activity is taking a lot more energy out of us, that we begin to neglect the spiritual part, then everybody suffers from it. So, having said that, I'd like us to read this legend of the Luminous Female Guide.
The Luminous Female Guide. Long, long ago, among humans, there was a queen of light. Her home was not of this earth, but was in much higher and purer realms. Purity and silver blue light surrounded her noble figure, and golden light played in her hair like the rays of the morning sun, and undulated around her queenly brow and person, weaving itself into a fine mantle of rays. Her eyes radiated in every shimmering shade of blue, from the delicate translucent blue of the most precious lapis gemstone to the impenetrable blue of the deepest ocean. It was impossible to tell whether the light rays came from her eyes or from her forehead, which glowed with 3 wondrous precious stones, set in a silver band encircling her noble head. The first stone was a luminous clear crystal, through which shimmered a soft blue light. The second stone glowed a warm red, radiating red like the most beautiful ruby. The third stone shone a combination of the colors of the first two, yielding an indescribable, radiant, luminous, glowing, yet cooling and soothing, delicate purple, shining through the stone. But its radiance was so bright that one could hardly ascribe a definite color to it. Similar to the violet shimmer of the purest mountain snow, gently stroked by the faint rays of the evening sun, it shone with the other two stones on either side of it. This purple-violet stone symbolized justice. The delicate, shimmering blue crystal symbolized purity. The glowing red stone symbolized love. In this manner, the heavenly queen walked creatively among the humans, drawing and dispensing from the pure source whose symbols glowed on her forehead and whose rays she guided towards the humans wherever there was a longing for it. The longing within the humans was the link that united them with this luminous guide, who sent them waves of light out of the eternal stream, springing from the source of purity, of love, and of justice. Pure rays of longing and volition called out to her, the gentle mediator, and she let the clear light waves flow to that place from which the call came. She was the queen of the human spirits, the guide. She guided the humans on the true path that led to the heights. They listened only to her voice. Through her, their prayers of thanks flowed upwards to the all-highest. All their wishes, thoughts, and deeds vibrated through her and were transmitted upwards in waves by her. And the humans lived happily a long time ago. Their lives were pure joy and gratitude. How could it be otherwise under this wise, queenly guide? How extensive and glorious was her realm. But it was not tied to this earth or to space and time. Here on earth, she was allowed to lead and guide the humans. She was allowed to lift one curtain after the other for each person, according to each person's level of maturity. The longing of the humans for light was the driving force that drove them ever higher towards greater awareness. This longing was the cry from the humans to their queen, by which she took their hand and led them upwards from one step to the other. Everything became more and more clear to the humans. Only their guide alone could show them things in the spiritual world and allow them to experience what they could never experience without her. Their spiritual eyes became open to her, and they experienced more and more of God's creation. Their vision became extensive. Life and activity on earth became elevated and ennobled by those humans who trusted completely in the guidance of this heavenly queen. Now, there was a trusty servant who was to prepare and smooth the path of the light queen upon earth. He did not come from the spiritual realm, and his nature was not so refined. His job was to be an instrument for the humans, for their earthly bodies. He was meant to help them convert the waves of rays from their feminine guide into full earthly form. He was meant to work in a creative way with the coverings which needed the pure streams flowing down from above in order to be effective on earth. He went hand in hand with his feminine guide, but she was always the leading one who carried the torch of light in front, guiding towards the destination. It never crossed the minds of the humans to ever place the servant on the same level as their queen. Then one day, a brilliant prince came to the woman and said to her, "Listen to the voice of the servant and raise him to become your God, and you will be rich and highly regarded on earth. You will become powerful and have all the comforts of life. The servant is willing to reward whoever makes him their king. But this requires only one thing: you must listen to him above the voice of your queen. So long as you remain far away from your queen, you will be free, powerful, and achieve all your desires." So spoke the brilliant prince, and the woman did as he advised and dragged everything along with her. Then a thick, heavy curtain came down between humankind and the Light Queen. Only a very few who still faintly sensed a longing for light within themselves, despite all the darkness, could still hear her voice. But a thick, cloudy covering enveloped humankind and the earth, and thick walls grew all around, which became ever higher and thicker as the humans distanced themselves more and more from the light. Within these walls ruled the erstwhile servant, the erstwhile instrument of the humans, who was now their idol and was in reality the instrument of the brilliant prince. For indeed it was the prince that held the steering wheel in his hand. But the humans noticed none of that. They had become slaves to this idol. They had given up their joy, their happiness, their peace, and indeed their entire life to him. If anyone who still listened to the voice of the Light Queen asked any of the followers of the servant about their purpose in life, they simply shrugged and turned away. If such a person spoke to them about the clear voice of the wise, queenly woman to which they should listen, they shook their heads and called the person a dreamer. They could no longer hear her voice. The walls they had built up were too thick, and they had already given themselves over too much to the control of their idol. Their spiritual eyes were blinded, and whatever they could not see were their earthly eyes, which were tied to space and time, just like the idol they served. They could not fathom and therefore rejected it. If they had a stronger backbone, they could set things right, but who among them was able to summon the power and the will to do so? Sadly, the few who still followed the pure, queenly woman remained silent. They had to let the humans go the way they had chosen for themselves, which they had constructed for themselves, and even more so, had misconstructed for themselves. For most of the humans, it is no longer a road, but a jungle of tangled and uncertain paths through wild brambles and darkness. The earth and the plains surrounding it were now covered in gloom and darkness, as it all became a jungle of darkness. The few whose little flame flickered in longing towards the height knew that a time would soon come when the heavenly queen would again set foot on a purified earth, and she would once again stride among enlightened humans and be permitted to be their high guide again. In these few humans, the preparation for this moment was arduous and yet joyful.
Thank you. This is a legend. But you know, all legends are grounded in truth, in reality. This is really the story of us as humans. More importantly, the story of us as women. What we have lost, what we have given up, and what we have lost. And to regain it is going to be quite a struggle for each woman. You know, when I sent out the invitation to this meeting, you know, if you looked at the picture on the flyer, there was something unusual about that picture. Did anybody notice anything different in that picture?
The woman is leading.
All right. So the woman is leading. Yeah, that's what's unusual. Because, you know, in preparation for this conference, I spent hours looking through photographs of men and women. Out of thousands of photographs of men and women, in almost all the photographs except this one, the man and woman were either walking side by side, or the man was walking in front of the woman and leading the woman. So that's the first thing that was unusual about this one picture. It was the only one picture in which the woman was leading the man. In this picture, what does the man look like? What is it you notice about the surroundings and the man and the woman?
The man is willingly following her.
Look at that picture again and see that the man is being led by the woman in the same way that a seeing person leads a blind person. It's really very important. The third thing that I noticed in that picture is that compared to all the other pictures, the surrounding around them is sort of not very bright. And she's sort of leading him towards a brighter or lighter place in front of them. Behind them is not so bright. In front of them is a little bit brighter. But the whole environment in that picture is really not very bright. There's no bright sunburst like there was in all the other pictures. And this picture is a very real reflection of where we're at today. And women have to really set to work to find ways to lead men out of the dark place that we've ended up in. Now, one could ask, well, how do you do that? You know, if you can bring yourself to understand the anatomy of the male and the anatomy of the female, then you will understand that it is not necessary to persuade the men around you to become spiritual. It is not necessary. You need to work on becoming spiritual because you are the woman. That's your job. If you are spiritual, you will exude everything that vibrates in harmony with creation. You will be fulfilling your place in creation. And when you do that, that spirituality diffuses all around you, and it will affect the men because it affects our thought processes. Before a person can even think, they have to open themselves to a thought. If the thoughts that are surrounding them are all thoughts of materialistic or driving towards materialistic wishes, then that's the only kind of thought that they will have. But if there are thoughts that are directed more upwards, more to the spiritual, then there are these thoughts circling around them, circling around the men and the children, that encourage them to think in a more upward looking manner, and also begin to ask about spiritual things. Because we as women have become so separated from our true spiritual beings, we've been locked into what I will call the prison of religion. The reason I call it the prison of religion is because everything that we learn, hear, and practice is as far away from true spirit as it could possibly be right now. We have to rediscover our true spiritual beingness. The last thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to suggest that we read something about this subject. Today, because women and men are interfering with each other's activities, women are inserting themselves in masculine ways that is not helpful for them or helpful for the men, and vice versa. Men are inserting themselves into the society in ways that are not helpful for them, for the men, or for the women. We have a chaotic society and interaction. But what's happening is that the predominance is towards masculine activity. The predominance is towards competition, conflict, wanting to dominate, and so on. And even the people who follow it themselves follow it because deep down inside them, they have this desire to be dominant. And creation has no room for that. The result is constant conflict and distress for all of us. So we each have to go deep down inside and ask ourselves, what am I? This is what I am. I must fulfill it in every aspect of my life. Not just when I go to church or I go to temple. It's in every aspect of my life. I have to fulfill it. As many of you know, I started to read this book, and the book is called In the Light of Truth, or The Grail Message. This book has a lot of information in it. It was written by a German in the period between the First World War and the Second World War. The name of the author is Abdrushin, which is a pen name that he used. And Abdrushin is actually an Arabic name, which means servant of light. And if you read the book, you'll find that it addresses individual subjects. Individual subjects. But every subject is a subject that concerns the human, that concerns the human condition and concerns the individual. So when you're reading it, read it knowing that this book is speaking to you as an individual, just to you. And you have to take it inside and look inside yourself as you're reading it. That's the way I recommend that you read it. So, today, I'm going to suggest that we read a chapter out of the book that somewhat addresses what we've just been talking about. Now, this book was originally written in German, and German is a very strong and precise language. So you're getting an English translation. And this is a book that addresses many spiritual things. And spiritual things are not very easy to translate from one language to another. As I was reading the book in English initially, I thought to myself, why don't I read it in its original language? Because that's the only way I'll really truly get what it's trying to say. And I've been working at it now for the past 30 years. And I decided that I would do a translation of each of these lectures, so I could put it into language that English speaking and English reading people from different parts of the world could truly understand. So it's written in somewhat simpler language, and I hope it will bring across the meaning. So I'm going to read this chapter to you from the book. The book comes in 3 volumes, like that, 3 volumes. And when you start reading it, it's in your best interest to start with volume 1 and then go to volume 2 and volume 3. But there is not a single chapter in this book that is not of vital importance. Every single chapter is of extremely vital importance. So reading just the first book and stopping there is doing yourself a disfavor, because there is so much more information that you need for your life. So I'm going to encourage you, don't stop. Keep reading, because newer and newer worlds just open up before your eyes as you read it. More and more understanding. Your horizon just expands beyond anything you could have ever dreamt of, as long as you keep reading.